Okay, so I'm currently prepping to go on a trip, which is why I am back in this space again instead of the normal space that I normally record in. Also, it is freezing in this building, so that's why I'm wearing a coat. But this is chapter 42 of Good Girl Bad Blood. Sunday, 16 days later. 42. They were dressed in black, all of them, because that's how it was supposed to be. Ravi's fingers were entwined with hers, and if Pip held them any tighter, they would break. She was sure of it. Crack in half like ribs. Her parents were standing on her other side, hands clasped in front of them, eyes down, her dad breathing in time with the wind in the trees. She noticed everything like that now. On the other side were Kara and Naomi Ward and Connor and Jamie Reynolds. Connor and Jamie were both wearing black suits that didn't quite fit, too small here, too long there, as though they'd both borrowed them from their father. Jamie was crying, his whole body shuddering with them inside that ill-fitting suit. Face reddening as he tried to swallow the tears down, glancing across at Pip over the coffin. A solid pine coffin with unadorned sides, measuring 84 inches by 28 by 23, with white satin lining inside. Pip had been the one to choose it. Stanley had no family, and his friends, they all disappeared after the story came out. All of them. No one stepped up to claim him, so Pip had, arranging the whole funeral. She'd chosen a burial against the funeral director's professional opinion. Stanley died with his ankles in her hands, scared and bleeding out while a fire raged around them. She didn't think he'd want to be cremated, burned, like his father had done to those 6 kids. A burial, that's what he would have wanted, Pip insisted. So they were outside on the left-hand side of the churchyard, beyond Hilary F. Wiseman. The petals of the white roses atop his coffin shivered in the wind. It was positioned over an open grave inside a metal frame with straps and green carpeting like fake grass, so it didn't look exactly what it was, a hole in the ground. Members of the police force were supposed to have been there, but Detective Hawkins had emailed Pip last night saying he'd been advised by his superiors that attending the funeral would be too political. So here they were, just the 8 of them, and most only here for Pip, not for him, the one lying dead in the solid pine coffin, except Jamie, she thought, catching his rubbed red eyes. The priest's collar was too tight, the flesh of his neck bunching over it as he read out the sermon. Pip looked beyond him at the small gray headstone she'd picked out, a man with 4 different names, but Stanley Forbes was the one he chose, the life he'd wanted, the one who was trying. So that was the name engraved over him, forever. Stanley Forbes, July 7th, 1990, to May 1st, 2020. You were better. And before we say our final prayers, Pip, you want to say a few words? The sound of her name caught her off guard, and she winced, her heart spiking, and suddenly her hands were wet, but it didn't feel like sweat. It was blood. It was blood. It was blood. Pip, Robbie whispered to her, giving her fingers a gentle squeeze. And no, there was no blood. She'd only imagined it. Yes, she said, coughing to clear her voice. Yes, I want to say thank you, everyone, for coming, and to you, Father Renton, for the service. If Ravi weren't holding her hand still, it would be shaking, fluttering on the wind. I didn't know Stanley all that well, but I think, in the last hour of his life, I got to know who he truly was. Pip stopped. There was a sound carrying on the breeze, a shout. It came again, louder this time, closer. Murderer! Her eyes shot up and her chest tightened. There was a group of about 15 people marching past the church toward them, painted signs held up in their hands. You're mourning a child killer, a man yelled. Pip stuttered, and she felt the scream again, growing in her stomach, burning her inside out. Keep going, Pickle. Her dad was well behind her, his warm hand on her shoulder. You're doing so well. I'll go talk to them. The group was nearing, and Pip could recognize a few faces among them now. Leslie from Stop and Shop, and Mary Scythe from the Fairview Mail. And was that Aunt's dad, Mr. Lowe, in the middle? She said shakily, watching her dad hurrying away up the path toward them. Kara gave her an encouraging smile, and Jamie nodded. Stanley, when he knew his own life was in danger, his first thought was to protect me and burn in hell. She tightened her hands into fists. And he faced his own death with bravery and scum. She dropped Ravi's hand and she was gone. No, Pip. Ravi tried to hold on to her, but she slipped out of his grasp and away, pounding up the grass. Her mom was calling her name, but that wasn't her right now. Her teeth bared, and she flew down the pathway, her black dress flailing behind her knees as she took on the wind. Her eyes flickered across the signs painted in dripping red letters. Killer Spawn, Monster of Fairview, Charlie Green equals hero, Child Brunswick, rotten hell, not in our town. Her dad looked back and tried to catch her as she passed, but she was too fast, and that burning inside her too strong. She collided into the group, shoving Leslie hard, her cardboard sign clattering to the ground. "He's dead," she screamed at them all, pushing them back. "Leave him alone, he's dead." "He shouldn't be buried here. This is our town," Mary said, pushing her sign toward Pip, blocking her sight. "He was your friend." Pip snatched the sign out of Mary's hands. "He was your friend," she roared, bringing the poster board down with all her strength against her knee. It broke cleanly in two, and she threw the pieces at Mary. "Leave him alone." She started toward Mr. Lowe, who flinched away from her, but she didn't make it. Her dad had grabbed her from behind, pulled her arms back. Pip reeled against him, her feet kicking out toward them, but they were all backing away from her. Something new on their faces, fear maybe, as she was dragged away. Pip's eyes blurred with angry tears as she looked up, arms locked behind her, her dad's calming voice in her ear. The sky was a pale and creamy blue, pockets of soft clouds floating across. A pretty sky for today. Stanley would have liked that, she thought, as she screamed up into it.